Welcome, everyone, to the VBC Bible Institute and podcast, and welcome back to our course, A Journey Through the Bible. Now, I know it's been a long time. I know there has been a considerable delay, and I apologize for that. There's just been so much going on, so much to talk about, and other podcasts, sermons, Bible studies, so many other little series that I'm working on that I've neglected to do some work here for the Bible Institute. Also, I have been waiting. The delay had an intentional aspect of it and an unintentional aspect. The unintentional was I just got busy with other things. The intentional was I'm just trying to figure out who's still with me, who's still listening. This journey through the Bible, this is a big undertaking. This is a big undertaking. So, you don't want to feel like you're just out there talking to no one. So even if you're passively listening, you're not actively looking everything up and you don't want to send me your work, that's okay. Just at least let me know you're out there even in a passive capacity. Just say, hey, I'm listening to you from here, keep going. Thank you. I may never communicate with you, but I'm listening. That would be great. And if you are actively participating, even if, when I say actively, you may not actually be sending me something, because if you're sending me things, I know you're actively participating. But if you're not sending things, but you're actually, got a notebook and you're working, let me at least know that. Just let me know where you're at, how you're listening, how you found us, to just let me know, because this takes a lot of time and effort. And I've got so many other things that I'm working on that sometimes I have to reevaluate, am I putting my effort in the right place, right? And there you go. So let me know. So I say all of that because we finally have made it to Genesis chapter 12. And I guess this is another reason for the delay. I have struggled with how to approach Genesis chapter 12, because once we get to Genesis chapter 12, we know we make a major transition. Where instead of the focus has kind of been on events, creation, the fall, the flood, the tower. There's been a major emphasis on events. Now, people have obviously been involved, but clearly events kind of seem to dominate the way the text has gone. Now we turn to Genesis 12, and it really changes its focus. The focus, there are events, obviously, but the focus is really on individuals. And obviously one individual comes to the forefront starting in Genesis 12 and plays a major role. And it's really kind of the dominant character in the narrative. There are other characters, obviously. There's events. I'm not denying that. But it's kind of dominates the narrative for a long time in Genesis, further as we move into Genesis. And we all know who that is, Abram or Abraham. Abram, his name is changed to Abraham. Okay, you know all of that. And obviously Abraham has been talked about and preached about a million times, right? A million times. So I want us to work through the stories. I do. And I want us to see what we can gain from the stories. But when we get to Abram and Abraham, I need you to understand this. As a Bible student, understanding some very critical things about Abram and Abraham's and things related to him are going to become absolutely critical and essential to how you interpret things moving forward. Let me just tell you this. How you understand Israel, the future of Israel. A lot of what we learn about Abraham is going to have a major understanding on what you believe about Israel moving forward. All right? I'm telling you, it just is. You may not understand it, but it will, right? Because there's a covenant that's going to be made. And understanding this covenant, who's it made for? Was that covenant fulfilled? Were there parts of that covenant not fulfilled? Does it have to be fulfilled in a literal way? Or was it filled in a spiritual way? Was that covenant transferred over to the church? There's going to be lots of these questions. And it's going to deal a lot of what you're going to believe about Israel, eschatology, the future, has a lot to do with you understanding Abram and Abraham. It really is. And obviously same person, Abram and Abraham, okay? One time I was in a Sunday school class where the teacher should have been teaching Sunday school, tried to show us the difference between Abram and Abraham. And he spoke and stated that there were two different people, and it's like, no, Abram's name was changed to Abraham. Like, okay, all right, whatever. You hear some weird things in churches sometimes, but that's a whole different topic. What I want you to understand is, look, if you say, I want to study eschatology, and I want to study end times, and I want to study Revelation, you better start with Abraham, understanding what in the world happened with this covenant, who it was to, and how was it applicable, because that's going to come into play. Here's another thing. Abraham, obviously you're going to know him in connection with the whole subject of circumcision. You better understand that. Why? Because some people use this whole concept of circumcision to justify infant baptism. So what you believe about baptism ultimately traces back to Abraham, right? And here's another question. Was the new covenant different than the Abrahamic covenant? Or was the Abrahamic covenant just an administration of a covenant made earlier? How many covenants were there? Was there a covenant of works and a covenant of grace, and then all the other covenants were just different administrations of the covenant of grace? That's covenant theology. Well, understanding then this covenant Abraham made and how it is the same or different or administration with the new covenant, all of these are going to come into questions dealing with so much, how you understand so many things. So the thing is typically Abraham is studied, like in all the times I studied Abraham in Bible college and seminaries and all seminaries I went to, sometimes it was more like, here's what Abraham did and here's what we can learn from it. Hey, look what Abraham did. Oh, look what and sometimes I'm like, wait, we missed the doctrinal significance of Abraham. There is a great doctrinal significance to Abraham and his story. And if you miss that, then your theology is you're going to move forward and develop theology based off presuppositions and based on other things, but you have to really develop it starting here with Genesis. And so we're going to really look at some of these things. We're going to move through them systematically, but I can't even overstate. I don't even have enough hyperbole in my body to explain to you how significant this is. And so I want to handle this in a way that I think will be beneficial. So I'm going to do my very best. But here we're going to introduce this, and I'm going to introduce this with giving you some things that you need to think about and some challenges you're going to face, giving you some assignments, because there is a lot here we need to consider. All right. We got a lot to unpack. All right. So this is a new phase in our journey through the Bible. We're getting ready it's going to take a whole different feeling, all right, a whole different course of and I told you that as we go through the Bible, we have to approach each section has its own challenges, its own terrain, its own geography, and then you have to figure it out and try to understand. What we're about to enter into is significant for you to understand a lot of things coming in the rest of the Bible, all right? So here we go. Here's some things I want you to think about. Number one, how do we judge Abraham? How do we judge him? Because when you read the narrative of his life, because we're getting ready, you're going to make judgments. Whether you like it or not, preachers make judgments all the time. Abraham did what he did here was good. What Abraham did here was wrong. Well, what is the basis of that judgment? Now, here's the reason I ask this. If we go back in Genesis, right, and we start figuring out, okay, there was Adam and Eve. They had children, so then how did they reproduce? And then we have to say, well, obviously there had to be some intermarrying with siblings, right? There had to be brothers and sisters who married and produced children. Well, how is that right? And what do we always say, class? Well, it was right because there was no commandment issued against it yet, and the fall had not done all the damage to the body. So we argue that though there was no scriptural commandment against, so you could not judge their action as being wrong because there was no prohibition yet offered to it. So what we say is what they did prior to the establishment of said law cannot be judged by that law. Now, if we take that mentality as a working principle in our hermeneutic, then guess what happens when we get to Abraham? When he does some things, do we say it's morally wrong that he did it? Do we judge it and speak of it as being sinful if there has not been a law yet revealed of it being sinful? So how are you going to judge the actions of Abram and Abraham? Are you going to say, well, that was wrong that he did that? Based off what? Now, yes, if God gives a clear directive, if God says, don't do this and they don't do it, then clearly he's violating what's been revealed by God. But the Mosaic law is not coming for there's going to be a big delay between Abraham and the Mosaic law being handed down. Right? Abraham's living prior to that law. So can you take the law that's going to be given to Moses and then take that law, bring it back, read Genesis and say, he was sinful here, he was sinful here, he was sinful here, he was sinful here. Look what he did there. Look what he did there. Now, sometimes this is very difficult and how to do so. Sometimes this is very difficult because there's certain times the text almost infers that something is wrong or that God is opposed to something or God thinks it's wrong, but we don't have the Mosaic law yet. So how do we understand when the text seems to imply something? Put it this way, if the text implies that it was wrong, not implies, if the text states that it was wrong, or seems to indicate that it was wrong, then we have to say it was wrong because that's not us making that judgment. That's not us importing Mosaic law upon it. That's the text doing it. And if the text does it, then we say, okay, clearly God seems to indicate that this action was wrong by what is stated in Genesis, not what was stated in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, anywhere else in the New Testament. No, we go, this was wrong because the text does so. But in some cases, it just shows an action and no moral judgment is offered about said action from the text. Well, then can we import a moral judgment on it if they're not operating under the Mosaic law, which had not been given yet? Now, I know that's not a question you're going to be typically given in a Bible college or a Bible institute, but we're trying to do things here in a way that I'm trying to give you, I'm trying to educate you in a way I'm trying to do things that I wish would have been done for me. I wish that kind of struggle, that question would have been brought up in class when I was in Bible Institute and Bible college, because every Bible student, every person who reads the Bible should ask themselves that question. Because sometimes I think we read the text and we just presuppose certain things upon the text that the text may not even be operating from that perspective. And we just presuppose it. We just place it on the text. Look, we read the Bible. You know certain things are wrong because you know the Bible says they're wrong. But you got to understand where Abraham is. He doesn't have the 10 Commandments. He doesn't have the Mosaic law. So what determines what's right and wrong for Abraham? Cultural norms? Like when is he speaking from a cultural norm, or when is he speaking from, hey, God has revealed that this is wrong? Like those are very important questions. So how are we going to judge him? Let's keep that in mind as we go through there, right? Let's keep that in mind. For example, right from the very beginning, right? If you go back to Genesis chapter 11, verse 31, and Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Okay, so they start traveling, and they start moving into the land of Canaan, right? Now, they're moving that way. Now, look at chapter 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country. Now, that seems to imply that God had already told him to do so. So God had revealed something. And God had told him to get thee out of thy country, from thy kindred, from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. So why hadn't he, was he obeying? Is he not obeying? He's going to have Lot. He's bringing Lot with him. Is he disobeying? Now, we don't base that on any other scripture other than it seems that God gave him specific directions and he doesn't appear to be following those directions. We have to judge it based off what's there. But there's going to be other things that they do, and you're going to be like, well, wait, is that wrong? Was that sinful? Was that wrong? You know, Sarai comes up, hey, we can't have a child. Here's a woman. Let's use her to have a baby. Was that sinful? Was that adultery? Was that considered? How do we judge that in light of no Mosaic law being handed down? That's all I'm trying to say. So that's number one. Number two, How do we understand the covenant made with Abraham and its application to Israel? Now, God is going to make a covenant with Abraham. You see a little bit of it right there in Genesis chapter 12, right? Verse 2, Genesis 12:2, I will make of thee a great nation. I will bless thee, make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. I will bless them that bless thee, curse them that curse thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Right? Those are major promises. So how do we understand those promises related to Israel? How do we understand that? All right. Then if we go to Genesis, I think is it chapter 15, Genesis? Well, we could go to Genesis chapter 15. And there's a lot here that we could read here in Genesis chapter 15. It says, look at verse 3. And Abraham said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, this shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, look now towards heaven, and tell the stars if thou art able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and it was counted him unto righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of the Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. Now there's going to be some promises of land, and there's going to be, and we could continue on. There's this development of this covenant. Okay, here's what you need to we are going to figure out. What is exactly promised in the covenant made with Abraham? Exactly, every promise. And were those promises specifically to Israel? And were they fulfilled to Israel? Or were there things not completely fulfilled? And if so, what does that mean for the future? And if they were fulfilled, does the new covenant pick up land promises? Why? And how were they fulfilled? So we're going to have to really understand this covenant, exactly what was promised and made to who, and how were they fulfilled. So here's what I want you to do. It's very simple. I want you to start on a piece of paper, put covenant made with Abraham. All right? First thing I want you to do is start in Genesis 12. Just start skimming Genesis 12 and start making a clear outline. Not an interpretation, just a clear outline that reflects everything promised to Abraham. All right? Everything promised to Abraham, and how those promises also extend beyond Abraham to the nation that's going to come from him, his descendants. All right? Now, listen to me carefully. Be very don't offer an interpretation, right? Okay, promise that he would promise. Write down the verse in which it was promised. He was promised this. Write down. Just start establishing it, and that we can establish here are the promises that kind of make up the Abrahamic covenant that was given to Abraham. Here is the exact promise. Now, who was it? How was it promised to Abraham, and how did it extend beyond Abraham? If it goes to Israel, then you can ask then we'll have, right now, we won't even try to, that's getting into interpretation. Just get it on paper what was actually promised. What was actually promised. Okay? Very, very important. All right? Now, what you can do is after you have found it in the scripture, you are free to look up in a Bible dictionary, a Bible encyclopedia, the Abrahamic covenant. Find an entry for the Abrahamic covenant and read what they say and see what they list as being a part of the covenant and see if it agrees with what you have on paper. If you miss something, correct it. Don't go to the dictionary first. Don't check your work first. Do the work first. Start in Genesis 12 and just start skimming. Okay. Oh, there's a promise. There's a promise right here. There's a promise. Okay. All right. Write down don't interpret the promise. Just write down what the promise is and the chapter and the verse. Just write down. List everything there. All right. Because you need it written down. All right. Because then later on, if some system comes along and says, see, okay, those promises, they now belong to the church. I go, whoa. How do I get that to the church? Wait, because he promised this. Well, wait, what happened here? They're not literal promises. They're figurative. They're allegorical. Whoa. Okay, how do I get there? but you've got to know exactly what was promised. That's going to be key to moving forward, right? So number one, how do we judge Abraham? Number two, I've got these things written down on my iPad here. How do we understand the covenant made with Abraham and its application to Israel? Your task is very simple. What was actually promised in the Abrahamic covenant? What was actually promised? What does the text say? You have to put it together. You have to go to Genesis 12, Genesis 15. You can find all the places. Then you look. I'm making it easy for you. It's open book. Then you just grab a Bible dictionary, encyclopedia, look up an entry for Abrahamic covenant, see what it lists as the actual contents of that covenant. Make sure you know exactly what was in it. All right, got that? Okay. Next. Okay. That's your first assignment. Got that? Next thing you do, next part of your assignment. Very important. All right. So I'm gonna write these down. All right. Your assignments. All right. I'm gonna put assignments. There we go. Okay. Well, I didn't. I'm misspelling it horribly. Assignments. There we go. All right. So number one, content. I'm just going to put this down. Content of Abraham's covenant. I'll just put it that way. All right. There we go. Content of the Abrahamic covenant. Right. That's why I just want you to get it down. All right. I just want you to get this down. I want you to have it down. And all the reason I'm writing them down, I got them in my head, but I'm just writing them down just to make sure I don't miss one in review. Okay. So get that content down. Just start in Genesis 12 and just start reading. Just skim. Oh, there's a promise to Abraham. Okay. Is that part of the covenant? Write it down. Have it down specifically. Don't miss anything. Okay. Look, you may write something down that we go, well, I don't know if that really fits a part of Abrahamic covenant, but there's a promise there. Okay. Like what is that? How does that apply to Israel? We can ask that question. And then look up an entry in a Bible dictionary of the Abrahamic covenant, and they're going to list what was the actual content of that covenant. Check your work. Verify your work. Okay. Got that? Number two, grab a Bible dictionary, Bible encyclopedia, and read everything they have to say in regards to covenant. All right. For example, let me move this. I'm going to move this book. I have here right next to me. I have here the Nelson's new illustrated Bible dictionary. All right. Just simply, if I was to do this, I would open this up. I would go to the C. I would keep on going down till I get down to here, covenant. And guess what I'm going to find? I'm going to find an entry for covenant on page 306. It's not a super long entry, but it's pretty long. Covenant. I want you to read everything the Bible dictionaries have to say about covenant. Everything. Write it down and write down some notes. Some things that really jump out you about covenant. Make sure you know, because this Abrahamic covenant, this is so critical, all right? Write down everything you can about covenant, all right? Because we're going to get into a lengthy discussion here about covenant theology. How do we understand that? Write down everything you can about covenant. Then look up the entry. So here we go. Okay, so I'm just going to put covenant down. Oh, wait, here, I'm typing it in the wrong place. I'm going to put down covenant as assignment number 2. And you just look up the entry covenant and a number of Bible dictionaries and write down some basic things that you learn. It doesn't have to be like you don't have to take everything in the dictionary and put it on your paper, but make sure you've got a pretty good understanding of what a covenant is, what it means, what it doesn't mean, how it was put together, just everything you can. Just get down the basic elements, like be able to summarize what you learned about covenant from the Bible dictionaries. Look up as many Bible dictionaries as you can. Covenant. All right. Number 3, new covenant. New covenant. Look up a number of dictionaries, and write down and look up entries for new covenant and summarize everything you find. All right. So let's go through these again. Number 1, the content of the Abrahamic covenant. I want you to go from Genesis 12, just skim Genesis 12, 13, 14, 15, go all the way up probably to 18. You'll know where to look, okay? And find all, and because I'm not trying to just give it to you easily, I want you to do a little bit of work here. Find all the scriptures that lay out the actual promises, the actual content of the Abrahamic covenant. Have that written down. No interpreting it, just have it written down so that you know exactly what's there. All right. Number 2, look up covenant in a Bible dictionary, in a couple of Bible dictionaries, 2 or 3, and summarize everything you find about covenant. Make sure you can summarize what the Bible dictionary says about covenant. Number 3, look up an entry for new covenant in a couple of Bible dictionaries and write down what they say in regards to the new covenant. All right. And trust me, a lot of what you may find in these Bible dictionaries may get challenged later on. Okay. So you've got that. So these are all Bible dictionary works, all right. Next, look up circumcision. Look up circumcision. All right, look up circumcision. All right. Look up circumcision, if I can speak right. There we go. So look up circumcision and a Bible dictionary. All right. 2 or 3 Bible dictionaries. Summarize everything it says about circumcision. So content of the Abrahamic covenant. Look up the Bible dictionary, 2 or 3 Bible dictionaries, 3 at least. If you can do 3, that would be great, but a minimum of 2. But at least if you can do 3, that would be wonderful. If you can do more than 3, then that's even better. Just because I just want you to see everything they have to say about covenant. Right? And because you may start noticing, wait a minute, I think these seem to have a different approach. And because you're going to be getting on to where that's going to start giving you a hint of all the different problems we're going to encounter, right? So content of the Abrahamic covenant, number 1, covenant. Number 3, the new covenant, Bible dictionary. Again, at minimum of 2, the more the better, and then summarize what they have. Then look up circumcision in a Bible dictionary. Circumcision in a Bible dictionary. Again, 2 minimum. 3 would be great. 4 would even be better. And summarize everything they have to say in regards to circumcision. Got that? Content of the Abrahamic covenant, new covenant, circumcision. All right? Got that? Then look up an entry for baptism. Okay? Bible dictionary, 2 or 3. Look at everything they have to say about baptism and just summarize what they say. Now, keep your eyes open. If they connect baptism to covenant or circumcision, note that. All right? Because obviously covenant and circumcision becomes a major issue, obviously starting here in Abraham's life. I mean, you could talk about the covenant made with Noah, but the Abrahamic covenant becomes really the big covenant that's going to get a lot of attention, okay? So just keep that in mind, all right? Now, some will argue that there was a covenant of grace established after Adam and Eve came out of the garden. We'll get into a whole discussion about covenant theology. Trust me, we'll get into that in great detail as we move forward. But I want you to start working on this for yourself. I know this seems like a lot, but it really isn't. You're just doing a lot of reading and summarizing on a piece of paper. It's not that hard. The content of the Abraham covenant, you're just skimming, finding all the promises listed in the covenant made to Abraham in Genesis, and you're just listing out all the details, all the promises, all right? Number 2, you're looking up in a Bible dictionary an entry for covenant. At least 2 Bible dictionaries, try to find 3, and you're summarizing what you found. Now, the better your summary is, the better you're going to be prepared to actually deal with these doctrinal issues as we move forward. If you don't want to take it seriously, you won't be prepared. It's up to how much work you want to do. New covenant. Look up 2 or 3 dictionaries, what they say about the new covenant. Look at it carefully, all right? Next, look up the entry for circumcision, 2 or 3 dictionaries. Look carefully. Next, look up 2 or 3 entries for baptism. Summarize. Now, you may start seeing how these things, you may see difference of opinions. You may see some things you don't understand. Okay, look, at any point through this, At any point when you're looking these things up, write down your questions and challenges that you have. If things you don't understand, just start writing a list of those things, because we're going to have to clarify all of this to try to come up with a true understanding of the Bible. All right, you got that? So, content of the Abrahamic covenant, look up covenant in a dictionary or 2 or 3 dictionaries. New covenant, circumcision, 2 or 3 dictionaries, baptism. You get the idea, all right? Now, once you've done all of that, here's the next thing you need to do. Are you ready? The next thing you need to do, and you should be able to find it online for free. You can get them cheap for a Kindle. I need you to look up the Westminster Larger Catechism. The Westminster Larger Catechism, and go to question 166, or forget the number. I don't know if it'll be numbered the exact same way in your copy. The Westminster Larger Catechism. And I want you to read everything it has to say in regards to baptism. All right? Okay. So we're going to put this one down as Catechism, Baptism. All right, so let's go through these again. I'm going to explain this all carefully. Content of the Abrahamic covenant. That requires you a Bible and a notebook. Go from Genesis 12, start looking through all the promises made to Abraham that pertains kind of to the covenant. Write down exactly what the contents of that covenant are. Have them written down. No interpretation. Next, look up the word covenant in 2 or 3 dictionaries. Summarize what those dictionaries have to say. Look up new covenant in 2 or 3 dictionaries. Summarize what they have to say. Look up circumcision in 2 or 3 dictionaries. Summarize what they have to say. Look up baptism in 2 or 3 dictionaries. Write down what they have to say. Look up the larger Westminster Catechism and look at its section on baptism. Read everything it has, all the questions and answers it has about baptism, and summarize. And this is going to narrow it down. All you have to do is summarize how it draws a connection, or does it? You have to try to answer, does it try to draw a connection between circumcision and baptism? Look for any language that tries to draw a connection between circumcision and baptism and covenant and baptism. All right, you got that? That's all you have to do. And then write down what they say that connection is. That's all you have to do. Just go through the Westminster Larger Catechism on the section on baptism. Just read it and then go, whoa. What does that say right there? That seems to draw a connection between covenant and baptism and circumcision and baptism. Simply write down what they say the connection is. If they offer scriptural proof in your copy of the Westminster Larger Catechism, write down what scripture they supposedly offer up as proof. That's the Westminster Larger Catechism. Okay, you got that? All right. Then one last thing to do. And I have it right here. I have it marked. Go to the Westminster Confession of Faith. The Westminster Confession of Faith. And in the Westminster Confession of Faith, look for the chapter that deals with God's covenant with man. God's covenant with man. And read that. God's covenant with man. God's covenant with man, and just summarize what you see there. That's the Westminster Confession of Faith. All right, so I'll write it down this way. Covenant, Confession of Faith. All right, now let's review. You ready? Here's your assignment. It's very simple, very straightforward. All right. Number 1, you look up in Genesis chapter 15, 16, 17, 18. Write down, list all of the contents of the covenant made with God to Abraham. Make sure you have everything written down, exactly what was promised. Give me the chapter and the verse. Don't interpret it. No interpretation allowed. Next, 2 or 3 dictionaries, look up the word covenant, summarize what you learn about covenant in 2 or 3 dictionaries. Is there agreement, disagreement? What do you get? Number 3, look up new covenant. 2 or 3 dictionaries, what do they say about the new covenant? What do they say, right? Number 4, look up circumcision in 2 or 3 dictionaries. What do they say about circumcision? Now, next, look up baptism. 2 or 3 dictionaries. What do they say in regards to baptism? Next, look up the Westminster Larger Catechism. Look at the section on baptism. And as you read it, just simply see, do they connect baptism with covenant and with circumcision? What do they say? What is the connection? Next, look up the Westminster Confession of Faith on the section on God's covenant with man, and see what do they say in regards to the covenant or covenants. How many? What do they say? All right. Now, the reason I'm having you look in the Westminster Larger Catechism and the Westminster Confession of Faith is they have a specific theological belief, a very specific theological belief about the covenant, about baptism, and they connect this all together with circumcision, and they put it all together. They have a very specific belief. They have specific beliefs about how many covenants there were: covenant of works, covenant of grace. All these others are administrations. I want you to see that system. I want you to see that system because that system may be very different than anything you have seen or anything you've studied. If you come from a covenantal theological background, then you'll be very familiar with this. What we're going to do is we're going to use this and then contrast it with other ways of looking at all of this. And we're going to see which one ultimately proves to hold out when we study the Bible. That's what we're going to do. If the Bible supports this, then we'll say it's right. If the Bible doesn't, we'll say it's wrong because this is a journey into the Bible. But you can't journey into the Bible and neglect all the theological presuppositions that people bring to the text. Even though they will claim they got it from the Scripture, in many cases they got it from the theological system, and then that theological system becomes the lens in which they read it. The reason I say this is I've had so many times an issue, say infant baptism will come up. And a lot of times the people who hold to the position of, say, the Westminster Confession, the Westminster Larger Catechism, they will always, and it drives me crazy when they do this. They'll say, look, it's right there in Scripture. It's so clear. I don't understand how you don't see it. And if you understood covenants better, if you understood circumcision better, you would get it. And they always say it in a condescending way, like, oh, I'm just stupid. I don't understand it. Like, they never bother to sit there and explain it to me. They're just like, you just need to study covenants more. Oh, you're right. 7 degrees, but you're right. I've never studied covenants. I don't even have a first clue about them. Don't understand them at all. I've never read anything about circumcision. I didn't read Calvin and all of his arguments for infant baptism. Nope, didn't do that at all. Didn't write a paper on it. Nope, didn't do that at all. So no matter how much education I got, the only reason I don't believe the way they believe about infant baptism, and I don't believe the way they believe about the covenants, is because I'm an idiot, because I'm ignorant. I cannot stand when people do that because they assume that they know what I've studied or haven't studied. You know what? We're not going to allow that kind of condescending arrogance to stop us from going, no. Your system is not infallible because you say it is. If the Bible is the ultimate authority, we're going to take your system. We're going to take all the systems. And we're going to go, and as we go take a journey through the entire Bible, we're going to see what comes out. But we've got to start talking about these issues now because guess what? You need to be an expert on covenant. You need to be an expert on circumcision. You need to be an expert on baptism because then once we become an expert on these subjects and what the Bible actually says in regards to these subjects, then when we get to these big theological questions, guess what? We're going to say, here's the options. This system of theology says it's this way. This system of theology says it's this way. But based off our study of these subjects, circumcision, baptism, right, covenant, because we realize that 2 of these options don't even work. They don't even work biblically, or they require a whole new hermeneutic. So that's what we're going to do. There's a method to this. I know this is not the normal way of studying this. But there has to be a way that equips you. My job is to equip you, and I can't equip you if we don't do it this way. So let me go through those assignments one more time. I was going to give you a devotional assignment, but this is going to keep you busy, all right? So Content of the Abrahamic covenant. I want that covenant. I want that content written down. I want to know what actually is in that covenant. What is actually there? What is a covenant? What do we understand about covenant? What do we know about covenant? How many covenants are there, right? Like, are there only, again, covenant theology says there's a covenant of works, there's a covenant of grace, and all the other covenants are not different covenants. They're just different administrations of one covenant, which is the covenant of grace. Is that true? Is that an accurate way of looking at it or not? Well, we're going to have to see. New covenant. Is the new covenant a new covenant, or is this just an administration of the covenant of grace, or is it actually new? And what is it? And we'll get into the new covenant more. I could tell you to write down all the content of the new covenant, but we'll do that when we get there, all right? But you need to start knowing about the new covenant now. Circumcision. Who was it for? What was it for? And what does that have anything to do with baptism? They circumcise babies. They circumcise male babies. Well, but okay, in the new covenant, so do we baptize babies because they circumcise? Like, how does that work? Okay, baptism. So we need to know, what does the Bible actually say about baptism? So let's look at the dictionaries and see what they have to say. Right now, depending on who published your dictionary, guess what? You're going to get different views on baptism. And that's why I'm telling you to read multiple dictionaries, because the different dictionaries you read, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get someone's theological system explained to you. What I want you to do is go through all of that, and then when we go through the Bible, we're going to see which one of these actually stand up. Then I want you to read a specific theological perspective, right? The Westminster Larger Catechism. Look what they say about baptism and see how they connect it to covenant and circumcision. And then look at the Westminster Confession of Faith, see what they have to say about covenant, and see what and you're going to see what they have to say. Now, you're going to be getting a lot of different perspectives from all of this, and then you're going to be prepared to then figure out what the Bible actually has to say, all right? So there you go. There you go. All right. I've got a devotional assignment for you, but I'm not going to give you that devotional assignment. Not right now, all right? There you go. If you have any questions, email me. If there's anything I can do to help you, listen, any feedback would be, look, I need your feedback. I need to know if I should just delete this podcast and just go focus on other things, because this one, I have not given this the dedication I need to because it requires so much work, but I just need to know what I don't know. So anything you can do, any suggestions, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, there you go. Get busy. I look forward to hearing from you. Email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Everyone have a great day. God bless.